Welcome, listeners, to Zone2Talk Podcast. Today's topic is butter chicken. I mean Indian cooking. But let's be honest, for many people in the West, butter chicken is the identity of Indian cooking. I'm sorry to generalize it, but that is my observation. Butter chicken is relatively a modern dish. Based on what I read, it was created in Delhi in 1950s at Moti Mahal restaurant, and it became globally famous because of its creamy, tangy, mild texture, and it has appealed to a wide audience. Indian cooking, on the other hand, is hugely diverse, and it dates back to thousands of years and many regions and hundreds of regional cuisines and God knows how many countless techniques. Um, what I've observed being in Denmark or in Europe for a decade is that food from north of India is quite famous and known. For example, butter chicken, naan, mango lassi. So if you go to any Indian restaurants in Europe, you will find these three things, and I can assure you of that. But authentic food from south or east of India is not is not yet famous or is not quite popular in Europe. For example, and I'm sure you might have not even heard of these names, or you might have. For example, dosa, idli, poha, puri, aloo, and since I've lived in Bengal, Bengali fish curry. These are some of the delicacies that are not commonly found in Europe. Butter chicken is obviously the one parading the rally with a huge Indian flag, and many authentic dishes have lost their track on the way. I feel that Indian cuisine has much more to offer, and hopefully in the future we would have restaurants that would have a diverse cuisine, and I would assume that people in Europe or in other parts of the world would definitely enjoy it. Coming back to butter chicken, here is the irony that I found out was butter chicken is not that spicy, or it can be considered as one of the least spicy Indian dishes out there. And yet there are people who think that Indian food, like when we ask, what do you think about Indian food? The first thing that pops into their head is it's extremely spicy. But Indian cook isn't just about spice levels, in my opinion. It's about art of spices. There's a difference between having a super spicy hot food and a spiced well food. It always intrigues me. Um, why did people back then choose the spice they chose, and what was the science behind it? Let me try to. I did some reading about it, and I'll try to share the reflection here with some history on spices. For centuries, India was the epicenter of spice trade. Arabs, or currently we call them Middle East regions, wherein I also have an interesting fact about this, which I will share at the end of the podcast. Um, Middle East or Arabs, they controlled the trade portion of spices that went from India to the West until Europeans, or to be precise, Vasco da Gama, discovered or set a sail in the 15th century to bypass this land route and reach directly to India via ships. I think that created a lot of history, and wars were fought, oceans were crossed, and empires rose and fell, all because of some people in the West wanting to have some good curry. Spices were deeply, or spices are still deeply tied to health, especially in India. For example, turmeric, it has a good anti-inflammatory property. Ginger aids digestion and generally is used when people are sick or have cold. Um, at least in when I was growing up, when we had cold or when we had flu, the first homemade medicine that we used to get before we went to the doctor was having a warm turmeric milk or have some grounded ginger shots. Um, and it was a common tradition in India to embrace this knowledge of spice and herbs to act as a medicinal properties. Um, Food and medicines were not separate uh, in the Indian culture. The spice cabinet was also considered to be a pharmacy back then. And we also have a huge field of text or knowledge that is gathered in one segment of our Vedas. It's called Ayurveda, which is not which is becoming popular within India, but it is not something that is globally considered to be the go-to knowledge. In cooking, almost every curry, um, mainly in the northern parts of India, every curry starts with or has a influence of ginger garlic or a ginger garlic paste. It has a good antibacterial power of garlic and has a good digestive aid properties of ginger. It's like our Indian version of Batman and Robin in the food sector. We also have another huge or another important spice, and that's turmeric. This is also one of the spices that is applied in almost every dishes. And in India, we call it haldi. It is used as an antiseptic or antibacterial. It has antiseptic or antibacterial properties in addition to being added in the food for tastes. It is also a symbol of purity and prosperity. So there is just before the day of getting married, the bride and groom are kind of immersed in this turmeric powder or turmeric paste, with the idea being that um, the marriage life is started being pure and being prosperous. I can go on and on about Indian spice, but butter chicken, I feel that the butter chicken is left out. It's having a FOMO effect. And let me bring it back to the conversation. The above spices that I mentioned are some of the key ingredients in butter chicken. So yes, even butter chicken owes its soul to ginger, garlic, and a bit of turmeric. The same spices that heals wounds, brightens ceremonies, and symbolizes prosperity. So next time when you have butter chicken, you're not only enjoying the curry, but you're also tasting the history, culture, the science, and medicinal information of India. And as I said in the starting of the podcast, that I have an interesting fact about Middle East when I touched upon the Arab route and the trade that happened between India and the West through the Arab route. There was an interesting article which I read is why is it called Middle East? It's neither in the middle of the world nor at the east section of the world. So it's a bit of a misleading term, Middle East. And then I read a bit about it, and I found this to be super interesting. Um, in the 19th or 20th century, British strategists looked outward from Europe and they defined certain areas. For example, Asia, or for China, Japan, Southeast Asia was considered to be east. Um, Places like Turkey, Ottoman Empire, um, area close to Europe were considered Near East, and then you can get the idea. So you have Far East, you have Near East, and then there is Middle East, and that is back then it was Persia, Iran, Arabia, Mesopotamia. Those were the regions that fell in this Middle East category. That is the definition of why the word middle came into the picture, and East is mainly because from Britain, if you travel east, then you would reach Middle East, or you would reach to these areas. And now you have the combination of Middle East, Middle and East in here. And I found this to be super interesting. In my head, it was always Middle East is the name of the place, but I never introspected like it's neither middle or in the east of the world. With this, I hope you enjoy your meal or run or whatever you're doing while listening to this podcast. If you like the content, please drop a comment. It means a lot to me. And as always, thank you in Danish, tak, and Jai Hind.